Recently, I had a video that discussed what I believed were the five best heroes to start playing Marvel Champions with. They were just kind of my opinion of five heroes that I thought were generally pretty easy to use. Maybe they had one or two little kind of quirks to them or tricks to them that uh, made you learn a little bit about the game and the future iterations of the game that'd be important. But generally speaking, they were pretty smooth to run, and they were also fairly strong too. A lot of people really liked that list, but they wanted me to take it a little bit further and wanted me to do a list of five more heroes. And some of the heroes on this list could easily have been in the first list as well. But anyway, so we're gonna do this. This is the what I'll call the next five heroes to play in Marvel Champions. Now, before we get into this first hero, I want to give you a friendly reminder of two things. One, the second link down below in the description of this video or podcast will link to my e-newsletter. We come out weekly. It kind of gives you an idea of what the top videos were of the week, some board game deals I've seen, usually involving Marvel Champions around on the internet, and then whatever a recent blog post is. It's just a bunch of it's just what's been going on kind of on D20 woodworking. Feel free to sign up. You can opt out of it at any time, just like any other newsletter. But it's weekly and it's pretty cool. Everyone that signed up, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So just definitely check that out down below. Also, as I made mention that you may be listening to this on podcasts, a couple people have reached out to me and said, "Hey, I haven't found you on the podcast platform I have used. Appreciate you all pointing that out. Thank you. I will continue to make sure that this stuff expands to as many podcast platforms as possible." But everyone that's hit the follow button, hit subscribe, left reviews, thank you so much for doing that. It really means a lot. It really helps out the podcast. So it's been really fun to do that. So thank you all. Really appreciate it. So thank you for your support. And if you haven't checked it out yet, make sure you do. Okay, so the first one is actually a hero that I think a lot of people brought up that could have worked in the original video. And the reason I didn't do this hero in the original video is because there's a lot of this then that type things. So this hero is Gamora, who I really like Gamora as a hero. I think Gamora is really, really strong. We'll mostly focus on her alter ego and her hero card. So Gamora alter ego, 3 recovery, 10 hit points, 6 hand size. Skilled tactician. You may include up to 6 attack and or thwart events in your deck from an aspect other than your chosen aspect. Not that this is like overly hard to grasp, but I think sometimes people lose what the synergy of the various things may be, so that could be a little tough. And then just look at the top card of your attack of your deck. If that card's an attack or thwart event, draw it. A lot of people get confused, like, well, if it's not, do I put it back? Yes, you do, unless it says like discard it. You don't have to discard it. But anyway, that can be a little confusing, but this is, to me, on the hero side, the more confusing thing. So, for example, Gamora is a 2/2/2 stat line, 5 hand size, 10 hit points. Now, finesse states after you play an attack event, remove one thwart or threat from a scheme. Limit once per phase. And same with precision is after you play a thwart event, deal 1 damage to an enemy. Now, that inherently isn't too hard to grasp, but I do see sometimes people get confused, like, wait, did I already play a thwart event? Did I not? Like, did I already trigger this? And then, the confusion with once per phase versus once per round does happen. So that's why I kind of kept Gamora out of the beginning of the list. And on top of that, she has certain cards like Decisive Blow. This is her big attack card, right? It's a 2-cost event. Deal 4 damage to an enemy, parenthesis, 7 damage instead if you played a thwart event this turn. So there is a lot of like layers in that sense of, okay, maybe I want to play a card like, what is it? Set the pace, right? It's a 0-cost event and you just play it to remove 1 threat from a scheme. There is some stuff you have to work out there. Okay, I want to play set the pace first, remove 1 threat from a scheme, which is going to trigger my hero ability. Now, it's a response, not a force response, so you don't have to do it now, but probably should. That you play a thwart event, so you deal 1 damage. Okay, do that. Then I play Decisive Blow, which now deals 7 damage, not the 4. And then, oh yeah, that triggers my finesse ability as well. And then, and then I play Acrobatic Move. I deal 2 more damage, but wait, I don't do the thwart this time. It's not overly hard, but I could see for a new player just it being a little bit overwhelming, right? A little bit tougher. But I think once you get a good grasp on the game, Gamora makes a lot of sense because the argument for her really is that she's very event focused, and the very event focused heroes generally are easier for newer players. I think, at least. Maybe not for everyone, but for me, they seem to be. I will also say that Keen Instinct is really nice because you can use this wild resource generator for an attack or thwart event. Most of your deck should be that anyway. Conditioning Room, I will say, is one of the most confusing cards because we still argue about it to this day. It's a 1-cost support. Alter Ego action, exhaust Conditioning Room, return the bottommost attack or thwart event from your discard pile to your hand. We in the community still disagree on what that is, right? So is the bottommost card the one that's near the top face up, or is it literally the bottommost one, like on the bottom of the discard pile? I've heard it argued both ways, that the bottom of the discard pile is actually on top because you're supposed to, like, be able to tell what attack and thwart event you have. And then I've heard it argued the other way, like, no, it's it's a literal, that's the bottom, right? So anyway, I know people are gonna like argue and discuss this. I don't really have a side. Like I don't have a dog in this fight. But it is funny because it's a very unclear card. I'm not sure if they ever ruled on that. But anyway, it's something that randomly comes up that people argue about. And then the other thing is Cross Counter, which is her defensive event, is one of the best cards out there. I think it's a card I love playing. So it's a 1-cost event. It's attack, defense, and thwart. Hero Interrupt. When you would take any mana damage, prevent 3 of that damage, deal 1 damage to enemy, remove 1 threat from a scheme. In doing so, because it's an attack and a thwart card, it would also trigger Finesse and Precision, which is the after you play attack or thwart card, right? Do one of the opposite. So it would also trigger that, and it's a different phase, so it wouldn't do it during here. But so like you can kind of tell like how there's layers of like how it could be confusing. So anyway, that's the only reason why I had Gamora not on the original list and on this list instead. I still kind of stand by that I think she is not in the first 5 you should play, but I do think she is earlier on for sure. Really quick before we move on to the next section, I forgot to talk a bit about Gamora's obligation. Unfulfilled Destiny. Again, it's not one of these you may flip to Alter Ego form. You can either exhaust Alter Ego and remove this card from the game, or you can choose and discard 2 events from your hand, discard as obligation. Either one isn't too bad. I mean, losing events stinks, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But just exhaust Gamora on her other sides. I think it's fine. Now, Gamora's Nemesis with Nebula is actually kind of rough. It's a 1/2/5 stat line, but Retaliate 2, which really stinks. Like, you want to one-shot Nebula for sure. When this minion would enter play, discard the Nebula ally from play. So again, her signature ally is Nebula, so you have to discard Nebula. So that's one of the things you have to do. Sibling Rivalry is a side scheme. Players other than Gamora cannot remove threat from Sibling Rivalry. It comes in with 4. And after the villain phase begins, deal 1 face down encounter card to Gamora. So again, Gamora's just getting extra bad cards, which can be a little bit rough. This is a harder nemesis to deal with. In a bind attached to Gamora, treat Gamora's printed text box as if it was printed in order to get rid of it. So you can't do your trigger like remove 1 threat and deal 1 damage based off the attack and thwart card you do. Choose and discard an attack event from your hand and deal 1 damage to Gamora to discard this card. Kind of rough to get rid of, but that's fine. And then Waylay, there's 2 of them. One revealed stun and confuse Gamora. If Gamora is already stunned or confused, this card gains Surge. Really rough, right? Really, really rough card. I don't like getting Waylay because being stunned and confused, I mean, just like it wipes out a turn for you. It really is kind of annoying. So this is another reason why I think Gamora is another hero why I would wait outside the top 5, because this Nemesis set, the obligation's fine. The Nemesis set can be a little tough. All right, so next is another hero that people made the argument for that should be in the first 5 heroes you play, and I don't disagree with it. This hero is Captain Marvel. Comes in the core box. I get that argument for sure. I just think Spider-Man's the better one to start with. And I was trying to space that out a little bit, but you can definitely make the argument for Captain Marvel being in the top 5 for sure. And the main reason is because she's just so powerful. So for example, on her alter ego side, 4 recovery, 6 hand size, 12 hit points, you get to just choose a player to draw a card, right? Limit once per round. So I choose me if I'm playing, and then I just get an extra card. So I have 7 cards, which is really strong. Captain Marvel on her hero size, a 2/2/1 stat line, 5 hand size, 12 hit points. Spend energy resource and heal 1 damage from Captain Marvel. Note, you have to be able to heal the 1 damage. If you're at full life, you cannot do this. And then you draw a card. So another way to get easy card draw, it I think also helps train you that you want to have some damage on Captain Marvel. I think a lot of players early on in their career that they don't want to take any damage, that they're scared of taking damage. And I don't think that's the right way to look at it. You should be all right with taking some damage. Obviously, there's such a thing as too much damage. But generally speaking, you should be all right taking some damage. And I think Captain Marvel does help you teach that. So that's why I had her in the second grouping and not that first grouping. I think Spider-Man does a really good job of playing into like the idea of you you don't want to take any damage, you're really scared to, you're worried about it, whatever. Versus Captain Marvel, you start feeling comfortable taking damage. So I like her in that second grouping a bit more. Now, as far as our cards go, I think one of the things that's really cool is you get your first experience with a triple resource card with energy absorption, right? It's 3 energies, which is really cool to see and really fun to play. For example, if you did Photonic Blast, which is a 3-cost event, you'd be able to pay for that card outright. Deal 5 damage to your enemy, which isn't very good. But if you use an energy resource, you get to draw a card, which is worth a decent amount, right? I think it's also fun as a player to use something like Energy Channel, which is 0-cost upgrade, max 1 per player. Spend X energy resources to put X energy counters on here, and then you can just discard the card to deal 2 damage to enemy, maximum 10 for each energy counter on here. I think it's a good way to learn to, like, if you have extra cards in your hand, to be able to, like, throw that away, right? To be able to do something with it. So I think that's a really strong card as well. Cosmic Flight is nice to help prevent damage. Sure, Alpha Flight Station will help you with your card draw. Like Crisis Indication, removing threat isn't too bad. This was still early on when Aerial was, like, I feel like a thing. They were trying to make it be a harder trait to get, and was going to do more with it, and they never really did. So anyway, I think it's a pretty strong set of cards in general. I think the card draw is the best part because it just gives you more options and it trains you to take some damage, and it's not the worst thing in the world. For her obligation, again, it's a very simple obligation. You may flip to Alter Ego, and then you can either exhaust Carol to remove the card, or just you're stunned, and this card gains Surge, which does kind of stink. As far as her her nemesis, right, Jan Rog, is a 2/3 stat line, 5 hit points. After Jan Rog attacks, place 1 threat on Magnetron, the Psyche Magnetron, which is the side scheme. When revealed, place 1 additional threat here per player. Get an extra bad card. That all stinks and is not great. Kree Manipulator is a Surge Nemesis card. When revealed, place 1 threat on the main scheme, which doesn't help the main scheme if you're dealing with a hard villain like that. There's 2 of them. And then Jan Rog's Treason. Discard each energy resource from your hand. If you don't do that, then you gain Surge. Like, if you couldn't do that, you would gain Surge. So it's not like a easy treachery set, but it's definitely not a hard treachery set. I mean, you want to get rid of the side scheme as soon as possible for sure. And Jan Rog can be tough because if the main scheme's kind of getting out of control, that's not great. But in general, Captain Marvel's really, really good overall. So I feel like she can handle most of what the game is throwing at her. But yeah. So anyway, that's probably the number 2 thing. My number 2 hero, I would say, in the what 5 to play next. All right, let's talk about another if this then that type hero, and that is Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, I really like Spider-Man Miles Morales. He's really strong. He's really good. It could be a little tough to navigate him, though, I feel like. So Miles, on his alter ego size, 4 recovery, 6 hand size, 9 hit points. This might be the first hero I've recommended that's 9 hit points. I'm not 100% sure. I think it is. But it could be a little bit rough dealing with that 9 hit points, right? I think that's it's a hard thing for new players to kind of get used to. It's not the end of the world by any means. It's just a little difficult to get used to. So it's a response after his alter ego ability is a response after you change to this form. Shuffle 1 Spider-Man card from the discard pile back to the deck. You don't have to worry about that till later on. Spider-Man hero side is a 2/2/2 stat line, 5 hand size, 9 hit points. Now this is the this and that type thing, right? So if you use Venom Blast, it's a special, deal 2 damage to enemy, stun the enemy. Spider Camouflage, give Spider-Man tough status, confuse an enemy. Well, how do you trigger these things? Well, for example, Swing In is this threat removal card, 2 for threat removal. Not bad, but if you use a mental resource for this, you get to use the Spider Camouflage ability, which is the give Spider-Man tough status and confuse an enemy. Web Shot, on the other hand, is a 2 for 4 attack. Not very good. Well, I mean, it's not very good, but it's not the worst thing I've seen. But if you use an energy resource, you get to use Venom Blast, which now pushes it to 2 more damage. So it's 2 for 6 damage, essentially. And you also stun the enemy. That timing those abilities, make sure you have the resources in the right spot. It's not like super hard, but you want to make sure you're using your resources as efficiently as possible. It's teaching you to build out to either make sure you have web shooters, which is this 1 cost upgrade with 3 web counters on them. You exhausted to remove 1 web counter from it to generate a wild resource. It kind of teaches you that, like, hey, we should keep those out there, use them when you need to type thing, but you don't want to use them all the time. Maybe you have a different way of generating resources as well. So I think just like learning that. On top of that, you have a card like Arachnobatics, which can be a bonker strong card. So 1 cost event, deal 2 damage to an enemy. If the enemy has a stun status card, deal 3 additional damage. That's now 1 for 5, which is phenomenal. If they're also if they're confused, deal 3 damage to it as well. So that's 6. That's 8 damage. 1 for 8 is one of the best. What is it, the best formula or whatever, I forgot what you would call it, but it's one of the best damage dealing cards out there compared to cost, right? So 3 for 8 is usually the standard that we go by. Like 3 for 8 is considered good. 1 for 8 would be absolutely phenomenal, right? So the issue with that is triggering it when the enemy is going to be stunned and confused. And that can be done through the web shot. It can be done through swing in. It can also be done when you have cards like Power Within, which is a 1 cost upgrade. After your hero uses the basic power, discard Power Within, resolve the Venom Blast ability, and or the defense mechanism, which is after your hero uses the base defense, discard that card, resolve Spider-Man's camouflage ability. By resolving these 2 abilities, one will confuse an enemy and the other will stun the enemy. This will now help you get through to Arachnobatics, right? So it's using that hero response on those 2 upgrades at the right time. I see a lot of people will like kind of use them right away, and sometimes you have to. But if you're trying to tee off Arachnobatics, especially if you get 2 in your hand and you can stun and confuse the enemy, like that's 2 for 16 damage, which is just gonna obliterate most enemies in the game. So stuff like that's like really important, and that doesn't even include like the Venom Blast and Spider Camouflage and that stuff. Doesn't even include any of that. But like that type of damage and lining it up, I think does take like an extra, just an extra level of knowing more about the game, right? That stuff can be tough. And double life, right? When I first got Miles, I didn't understand why this was a good card. It's a 1 cost event, max 1 per round. Action, change your form. If you pay for this card using a fist resource, ready your identity. When this first came out, I was like, okay, it's not bad, but then I realized how good it can be because I can change down to alter ego and then exhaust to heal myself up, right? And then play double life with a fist resource to now be able to flip back over to my hero side and ready up my identity so I can swing again to remove 2 threat, whoever it may be. Being able to quickly go down and heal and then pop back up so you have to deal with the villain thwarting or scheming, is really, really strong. But it's a thing that, again, you're probably not going to get in your first 5, but you will probably learn within your next 5 heroes. We didn't really go through his other support cards. I think they're fine, right? Jefferson Davis, it exhausts him as an alter ego. Remove 1 threat from the scheme with the least threat. That's fine. It's pretty explanatory. And Genki Lee is the draw 1 card. If you're in hero form, choose and discard 1 card from your hand. I think that's fine. Now, as far as his obligation, keeping secrets, you may flip to alter ego. Again, exhaust Miles to remove from the game. Pretty simple. The other options, discard Genki Lee and Jefferson Davis from play. If neither was discarded this way, this card gains Surge. So that can be a little tricky if you have those supports out there. So then his nemesis is the Prowler, 1/2/5 with Stalwart. When revealed, if you're in alter ego form, give him a tough status. His side scheme is tracking prey. When revealed, if you're an alter ego, place 1 acceleration token here. So that would have 2 that are on there, and it's 4 threat on it to remove the card. Razor Claws gives them 2 attack. Attach the minion with the highest printed hit points if you cannot gain Surge. And they also gain Piercing, so you want to get rid of Prowler as fast as possible. And then you have 2 copies of Slice and Dice. When revealed, Prowler attacks the player with the fewest remaining hit points, even if they're an alter ego. If that attack defeats a character or no attack was made, this card gains Surge. So, not crazy hard nemesis, but it's not like a pushover by any means, especially if you don't get Razor Claws on. You just get rid of tracking prey as fast as possible. It's not so bad. But anyway, Miles Morales, like I said, you want to make sure you learn how to time out your web shots and your swing in so that the enemy is stunned and confused when you want them to be. Just takes a little extra level to things, but once you learn him, I mean, it's phenomenal. But I think he's a good hero to learn in your next 5 set. All right, so now for number 4 is a hero that I really love, and I think she's just, I think it's important to just get fun, unique, different type of heroes out there. And here, okay, this is probably gonna be the most controversial one on this list because she can be tough to navigate and pilot now and again. But I think once you grasp it, it's really strong, and that is Storm. So we're going to get into this because the big issue is the weather deck. So on Storm's alter ego side, she has 3 recoveries, 6 hand size, 10 hit points. She starts with the weather deck. we'll deal with that in a second. So setup, choose a support from the weather deck and put it into play. So basically you could start with whatever weather you want. Storm on our hero side is a 1/2/1 stat line, 5 hand size, 10 hit points. Swap your weather support in play of your choice from the weather deck. Resolve the special ability on the weather support in play. Limit once per round. So talking about this weather deck on the side, the big thing to note is that the weather affects all characters. And this will teach you what characters are, because they're not just your hero. They're not just the other heroes at the table. They're not just the allies at the table. They are also the villain and the minions on the table. All of them are characters combined. So the weather deck affects everything, and that's important to note. So Clear Skies is a permanent card support. Part of the weather deck. So each character gains Stalwart. So if you're trying to stun or confuse the enemy, well, Clear Skies is not a good card to get out there. But if you trigger the special ability, you get to draw a card. Hurricane gives everyone Retaliate. So if you're going to be attacking the enemy, this is probably not a great card to have out there. But you get to remove 2 threat from a scheme when you use the special ability of this card. Thunderstorm, each character gets +1 attack. So you probably don't want to finish your hand or your round on this so the enemy gets extra attack, unless you're flipping down. That doesn't matter. Deal 2 damage to an enemy based on the special. And then Blizzard, each character gets -1 attack. So again, if you're attacking, you want to make sure that you attack first before you get Blizzard out there. Specials, choose a non-elite minion until the end of the round. Treat that minion's text box as if it were blank, which can be really strong and really good. So she has different upgrades that are really phenomenal in this game. So for example, Storm's Crown is a 2-cost upgrade. You get +1 thwart. Exhaust the crown to generate the permanent resource on your weather support. They each have a different thing, right? It's wild, fist, energy, and mental. So depending which one you want to generate, you can flip to that one. But basically, it's a resource generator and also improves your stat line in 2/2/1. Storm's Cape is a 3-cost upgrade, so she gains aerial and also gets +1 defense, so she's a 2/2/2 stat line. But after you resolve the special ability on your weather support, exhaust Storm's Cape to ready Storm, which can be really nice to use her again, again or multiple times. Aurora's Garden, 1-cost support, exhaust the garden to heal 2 damage from your identity as an alter ego. Really nice to be able to heal because she only has 3 recovery. Then we have Weather Goddess, 0-cost event. Swap your weather support and play with a support of your choice and resolve the special ability. This is really nice because, again, when we talk about, okay, if I want to switch to the +1 attack, I could switch to that, do my attacks, and then use something like Weather Goddess to flip back to like -1 or something like that, whatever it may be. So like being able to do that really quick is really good. Or you put in a Hurricane, so now you're getting Retaliate for when the enemy attacks you, and not getting Retaliate when you attack the enemy. So Weather God's really good card. Just learning when those swaps are. It's not super hard, but you just have to kind of plan out a little bit. And with more players, it gets harder though, because you want to make sure you keep everything in check on the table. Because some of your teammates, obviously, it's going to affect them as well. Torrential Rain, 2-cost event, remove 3 threat from a scheme, or remove 3 threat from all schemes in play. If you're on Hurricane, resolve a special ability. And this is the only other tricky part, is you want to line up Torrential Rain with the Hurricane card. Lightning Bolt's a 3-cost event, deal 8 damage to an enemy, which is good. But if Thunderstorm is in play, resolve its special ability. So it really does 3 for 10, which is really good. But it's only that way if you can line it up with the correct weather card in play. Flash Freeze is the defense card, 1-cost event. When the villain attacks you, the villain, each minion engaged with you, gets -3 attack. If Blizzard's in play, resolve its special ability. Really good. And then Blast of Wind, 3-cost event. Choose a player, deal 3 damage to the villain, each minion engaged with that player. Resolve the special and whatever the weather card is, so it depends on what it is. Again, learning how to control that weather deck and getting the right timings can be a little tricky, but after you play some rounds of the game, I think you'll be able to handle it. It's just in multiplayer games, like 4-player games, I think this starts getting really difficult to kind of manage. It maybe is not meant for the newest of players, but I think for a solo player, you should be able to handle it pretty well, in my opinion. Again, once you get a couple games under your belt. So, Claustrophobia, flip to the alter ego form. You cannot change the form, so you have to do this, and you have to exhaust Aurora Monroe to remove it from the game. So it's a little bit trickier of an obligation. It kind of gets you into that mindset, what a harder obligation is like, but it's not crazy hard. Now, Callisto, I'm going to be honest, is really hard to deal with, and this is kind of what makes me nervous of putting this on this list. So Callisto's a 1/3/5 stat line. She has quick strike, so she's dealing 3 damage right away unless you defend. When Knife Fight Treachery is revealed, give Callisto a tough status card. So let's go to Knife Fight really quick. There's 2 of them. Yeah. And Alter Ego, it gains Surge, which is fine. On the hero side, you choose an enemy with the highest attack and take damage equal to its attack. Deal damage to that enemy equal to your attack. So again, you don't even get the chance to defend against it. Like, she's just dealing damage. And the reason that this could be worse is because a card like Switchblade, where you attach to a minion with the highest points of attack, otherwise it gains Surge, so it comes in with 2 extra attacks. So Callisto could just deal 5 damage, right? That's really rough. And also, when Night Fight is revealed, you would give Callisto a tough status card. So when you do damage back, it won't even matter because your damage back will go right into the tough status, which really stinks. And then Leader of the Morlocks is a side scheme, 2 threat per player. The player who defeats this scheme searches the encounter deck and discard pile and set aside area for Knife Fight and reveals it. Not great. So make sure you defeat What's Her Face first before dealing with Leader of the Morlocks. So this Nemesis, and that has a boost icon on it as well. Her Nemesis set is rougher. It is a rough Nemesis set. Now, I think Storm is incredibly strong and can be able to handle it, but it's going to take a little bit to get used to and to like kind of to get used to and prepare for what's going to happen with that Nemesis set. It takes some time to get used to the weather deck, but it's really nice to be able to switch that weather deck when you want. So I really like her for that part of it. But she is like, I know I have her like technically 9th as the hero to try. In this second group of 5, you might put her at the end. I didn't for a variety of reasons, because I think there's just a lot to learn here. I think there's a lot of important things with timing to learn as a new player, and I think Storm will help you learn those things, especially just being as efficient as possible. I think Storm personally for me helped me be a more efficient and better player because I realized, okay, I want to make sure like things line up as well as possible. It really made me take my turn through a lot of different rounds instead of just going, okay, I want to play this and this. Like I thought, no, there's an efficient way to do it. What's that way? All right, our last one is a much newer hero. And it's actually a hero I don't really like that much, but I think it makes sense for a lot of beginners for the most part. Or he's more beginner friendly, I would say, and that is Iceman Bobby Drake. So Bobby Drake is a 4 recovery, 6 hand size, 11 hit points. I like the more life. I think that helps newer players. And you get to learn about cards kind of off to the side, right, with like the Frostbite upgrades. So cool off response after you change to this form, shuffle 1 ice card from your discard pile back in your deck for each copy of Frostbite in play, which is nice. Iceman himself is a 1/2/2 stat line, 5 hand size, 11 hit points. When Iceman makes a basic attack or defense against an enemy, attach a set aside copy of Frostbite. So what does Frostbite do? It's a null cost upgrade. Attached enemy gets -1 scheme, -1 attack. After they activate or leaves play, you set this card aside. I think that's really strong and really good. Again, because most of the time you're probably going to attack or defend. The obvious like exception here is that you thwart with Iceman. So that is like one of the harder things to recognize with him is that you don't want to thwart with him. You want to attack and defend with him. But anyway, in doing so, you get to make the enemy you're dealing with weaker, which I think is pretty nice. I think it's good for newer players to kind of get used to that. I think his Power Belt, a 2-cost upgrade. You get him 3 hit points, which is really nice. Also, you can exhaust to generate a wild resource for an ice card, which is really nice. His 2-cost upgrade, Cryokinetic Perception. After you resolve your freeze ability, exhaust this card to draw 1 card. If it's an ice card, you get to ready up Iceman. Again, the freeze ability is on his main side when you make a basic attack or defense. That's the whole ready up thing. So it can be nice. Ice Slide gives him a +1/+1/+1 stat line, which is massive. He becomes like a 2/3/3 hero, which is one of the best out there. And he also gains Aerial. But after you change to Alter Ego, you have to shuffle this card in your deck, which you do have to like, pay attention to that. Ice Wall is really nice for new players. It's a 4-cost support, which is really expensive. But when Identity would take any amount of damage, so this is your hero, this is your ally, this is Alter Ego, this is your teammates, doesn't really matter. Place that damage on here instead. Then if there's at least 8 damage here, discard this card and attach a set aside copy of Frostbite to the enemy that just attacked. And then you have Frozen Solid, 3-cost upgrade. Attached to an enemy, will max 1 per enemy. When attached enemy would activate, discard Frozen Solid, then attach a copy of Frostbite to the enemy, which again is really nice. Arctic Blast, 2-cost event attack. Choose. You can either deal 4 damage and attach a set aside copy of Frostbite to it, which is fine. Or deal 6 damage to an enemy with Frostbite attached. I think it's really good. So it's 2 for 6, which is pretty strong. Ice Blast is a 3-cost event. Choose a player, attach a set aside copy of Frostbite to the villain each minion engaged with them. which is really good. Deal 3 damage to each enemy with a copy of Frostbite attached. Pretty strong. And lastly is Chill Out. 2-cost event, remove 3 threat from a scheme, which is fine, but attach a set-aside copy of Frostbite to an enemy, which is pretty nice. So his cards are very event heavy. They're very kind of straightforward in how you use them. I think he's strong in the sense that again, you're weakening your villains. You're able to increase your life. You're able to get a pretty good stat line if you want. So all that stuff I think makes it a lot easier to play Iceman, and just makes him strong overall. It is just like trying to get used to that set aside card and how that works. So I think being able to do that and attach the what is it, the frozen cards, the frostbite cards to enemies, I think is really good. And just kind of learning that process. I think that's the bigger part of it, just learning that process. And I think Iceman does a really good job of that. All right, so then his obligation is hot-headed. Force response, attach. After you attach a frostbite upgrade to an enemy, take 1 damage. So this is just an obligation that is in the Bobby Drake area. Alter Ego response, after you make a basic recovery, discard this card. So it's a different way. We're used to just flipping down the Alter Ego and to discard this card, or exhausting, an Alter Ego. It's not the case. You have to basically make a basic recovery. So you have to take some damage in order to do it. I think you have to take some damage then. Actually, it's a good question. I don't know if you actually have to, or you can recover for full life. I feel like they answered this, and you can't recover with full life, because this is the whole Spider Ham thing, where if he could recover in the beginning to get 1-2 encounter, and I don't think he can. You have to double check me on that. But anyway, there's more to it, right, than just the exhausting. So there's that. Pyro is his nemesis, 1/3/4 stat line with quick strike, and Pyro deals indirect damage. So if there's a ally that takes the block but only has 1 health, then that 2 extra damage has to be given somewhere. So playing with fire is the side scheme. When defeated, the player who defeated this scheme discards top 3 cards of their deck and takes 1 indirect damage for each resource icon discarded this way. Comes in with an acceleration icon and 3 threat on that scheme. Pyro's Flamethrower adds 0 attack, but you attach to Pyro, otherwise gain Surge. When Pyro attacks you, discard a top card of your deck. Pyro gets +1 attack for each resource icon on that card, which can be really bad. And then finally, there's 2 copies of Burn Treachery. When revealed, discard the top 2 cards of your deck. 3 instead if Pyro is in play. Take 1 indirect damage for each resource icon discarded this way. Pyro can be rough. Hot-headed obligation is a little bit tougher. So that's one of the reasons to kind of drop Iceman a bit lower. But again, if you're very big into event-driven heroes, I think Iceman can be good for that. I think the addition of Frostbite makes it kind of easy. And again, just learning how does this upgrade on the side work when putting it into play, depending on the triggering conditions. I think all that stuff is important and good to learn. I think Iceman does a pretty decent job of teaching those steps to a player. As always with any of these lists, they're just my opinion. They're just my opinion on things. I'm really interested to hear what you all have to say. Let me know your thoughts, if you agree with my list, who you would add, who you would take away, whatever it may be. I'm always interested in hearing those things. I think it's pretty fascinating. So make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications. All that stuff really helps out. If you haven't joined the Twitch community, especially if you have an Amazon Prime sub, so if you have Amazon Prime, you have a free sub to give away. So make sure to give away that sub to somebody in the board game community. They would greatly appreciate it because it's real money in their pocket and you've already paid for it. But anyway, I appreciate everyone that subscribed, everyone that's watched these videos, that commented. It means a lot. It means a ton. So thank you all so much. And I will see you all next time.